And right now, it's time for us to look at some of the selected national dailies and see what's happening in the country today. This selected national dailies, or the national dailies, kind of give us a sense of what the tune of the country is this morning. And like we do in the studio, every time we start with the Daily Trust, I have a copy here with me. And look at this, with very shouty lead story this morning, a very sad one. And it says that bodies of 11 Fulani arrested by soldiers found in Kaduna forest. The writers attached to the story says, "I was taking my son to the hospital when he was arrested." Our houses raided, property taken away. That's coming from a headman. And we don't kill people after arrest. Army responds to that attack, and we are looking into the matter, and that's coming from the Kaduna government. Page 4 has details of that story, the lead story. All right, let's take above that. We have, despite $2.2 billion, Afrexim Bank's inflow and Naira continues to depreciate. Page 19 has that story. A Supreme Court fixes Friday for judgment in Kano gubernatorial dispute. Page 24. Friday, that is the 12th of January. So you just might want to keep up, because we will be connecting and giving you all of the insights concerning this. And a kicker that has won Gaza, it says ICJ begins hearing genocide case against Netanyahu today. Page 26 has details of that. And below the lead story, we have $6 billion Mambila project. Court remands ex-power minister Agunloye in Kuje prison. Page 5 has details of that story. Then 20 die in Rivers boat accident. A very sad one there. And tinubu appoints new boards for NACAN and Christian Pilgrim Commission. Page 5 has details of that story. We have a pictorial there of, some of the people who were at a meeting yesterday. Mr. Akino Guranti, Executive Director of Zenith Bank, and of course other dignitaries there. You might just want to read further what that is all about. And then another investigators report. CBN dissolves boards of Union Bank, Keystone Bank, and Polaris Bank. You can get details of that. There's a writer attached to the story said action could unsettle banking sectors and investors. Professor Ife giving that insight. That page 4 and page 26 of Daily Trust newspaper for this morning has details of that story. That's about the stories in the front of a Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
All right, we'll move on to the Guardian newspaper this morning. Quite similar, some of the big stories, of course, to what we have taken from the Daily Trust, but it leads with the development at the Central Bank of Nigeria. Anxiety as CBN sacks board of Union, Keystone, and Polaris banks. You'll find there the pictures of those affected, occasioned by the report of the special investigator there, also in the picture. The details of which you get if you get to this Guardian and opened to page 6. And to other stories, Supreme Court returns Fintiri as Adamawa governor reserves judgment in Abia's appeal. Austerity between call for sacrifice and leading by example. That's a big one. And I'm sure it is addressed to the leaders. It's not enough for you to ask us to tighten our belt. At this point, we are tightening our intestines. It's also important for you to also dress properly.
Exactly.
You can't be coming out in flowing agbada, starched, and looking all worried about what's going on, and we'll be struggling to come out of our houses.
Exactly.
Yes. And to other stories, of course, we also have there in the front page the picture of the Zenith Bank management visiting the High Commissioner of Canada to Nigeria. A condolence visit it was over the recent passing of the Deputy High Commissioner in Nigeria. To other stories, exit of internationals, debt nil for local industries. Exit of multinationals, debt nil for local industries. At a time where we're traveling the world to attract foreign investment, we cannot afford to be losing the very few who are providing jobs in Nigeria. FG disburse NIQ, they disbursed 10 billion, to 165 private accounts in 2022. That's huge.
It's huge.
You know, and Third Mainland Bridge closure. Commuters lament chaotic traffic and seek reprieve. There's no reprieve, basically. I've lived in Lagos for 6.5 years. There's basically every time I went through 3 different closures and it was hell.
Yes.
You know, you dread anything that would take you across the bridge, whether you're on the island or on the mainland.
Exactly.
And calls for expanded probe intensifies as permanent secretary take charge from Edu. I like one of the memes that came out of this whole thing. They said, better soup, namanikilam. I'm not sure you get the joke.
Better be educated.
Okay. All right. Court reminds ex-minister Agunloye in Kuje prison and governors delegate duties to TED Fund. Cheno laments. Basically, I think governors have abdicated their responsibility as far as tertiary institutions are concerned. Every single development you find in the tertiary institution today is a TED Fund project.
Exactly.
And then you ask yourself, where is the government funds that is supposed to strengthen whatever external contribution you get to provide the adequacy and sufficiency?
And when you go downwards or lower, you see PTA, most of the projects there.
Yeah, and at the primary levels, you see you back. And so we are practically hands off that sector. That's it on the front page of The Guardian.
All right, let's go to First News. That's our next stop. And then we have a story here just above at the masthead. We have federal government's takeover of banks. 259 anti-corruption coalition praises Obazi for job well done.
Where did they have the meeting? This announcement was last night. Well,
okay. Recommends him for national honor, urges president to give him more important national assignments.
Early days.
Wow. 259. You can get details of that story in the First News this morning. And below that, we have a kicker cash transfer. 283,003 Lagos residents to get 25,000 naira each. Get that details on the First newspaper. And Ondo, ignore mischief makers. APC chieftain urges Aidatiwa. Get details of that story in the First News. And Femi Tedola donates 1 billion naira to Lagos Security Trust Fund. Okay, represented by his daughter. That happened yesterday. You might get details of that when you read further. And then $6 billion Mambila scandal. Court remands ex-minister Agunloye in prison. And then there's a special investigators report here in the First News newspaper front page. It says federal government aces 4 banks over CBN looting as Apex Bank takes over Union Bank, TTB, Polaris, Keystone, Saks Management, and Buds, and then merges them to form 2 government-owned commercial banks, and also considers new names for merged banks. Maybe in the coming days, we'll probably be hearing, a very strange bank name, and you probably would think that this came from here. But let's move lower. We have real reasons Betta Edu fell out with Halima Shehu. That's the NSIP boss that was suspended. This is coming from sources you can read further. And we seized illegal goods worth 16 trillion naira in 2023, says Custom. And no more indiscipline in Waterways Authority. That's coming from Oyeba Miji. And then on AFCON 2024, go for the goals. David Mark urges Super Eagles. And as Super Sport makes U-turn, decide to show matches. And the last one says, I will support Tinubu without apologies, says Atiku's ex-aide, Bwala. I'm so excited about the AFCON, though. We get to watch it. We have different choices to make where to watch African Cup of Nations now.
You can be the biggest broadcast network in Africa and pretend not to have the funds to pay to show the AFCON, because you thought that because you are the biggest, you don't have to pay premium to show those programs. Not even this edition that's looking like Nigeria will clinch the trophy, I'm not sure where the optimism is coming from. Well, but it's good that they are going to show
I'm very optimistic about this one.
I hope so,
I've been optimistic before, but my optimism was dashed to the mud. But I will keep being optimistic.
The
about
little
this.
optimism I have.
I'm a very good Nigerian.
Okay. Let me join my optimism to yours and hope for the best, especially at a time where we need a lot of distractions from all that is happening in the politics. To Business Day, and that will be our last before we take a deep dive into some of the issues that are making the covers this morning. Biggest banks dominate trillion naira club as stock soars. There is a massive boom on the Nigeria Stock Exchange. It's not an advertisement for what is going on there.
Look at
but there's
that.
so much happening in the opening days of 2024, and all of the tier one banks, Daily Trust reported that yesterday at the expense of taking some glory back home. All of the tier one banks are now in the trillion naira clubs. They have all their capitalizations have crossed the trillion naira mark, and that's a good thing if you consider what's happening to the economy.
Exactly.
And I'm sure that is what Daily Trust is celebrating today with its lead story. And to other stories on the front page of Business Day, schools pause fee hike as cost of living crisis worsen. I'm not sure how they will cope with that. The people who teach there are also Nigerians. They are buying from the inflated prices that we get from the market. And somehow, I'm sure they would end up passing the buck to the average household. Manufacturing investment dips 53.8% as reforms yet to kick in. We are seriously waiting on that. FX stability, automation, seen driving maritime growth. And CBN dissolves boards management of Union, Keystone, and Polaris Bank. Constant blackout fails to dim Disco's revenue haul. That's always the problem with Nigeria. Businesses making billions in the face of an economy that is nosediving. Yes. In this case, we are not seeing the light, but the revenues of the Discos seem to be surging. The contrast in the way things work in Nigeria is beyond the thinking of an average. You just can't reconcile it. You cannot be making the kind of billionaires we make in this country when over 90% of your average citizens are unable to earn something good enough to feed them in one day.
You keep wondering, and this is the part where I say I think Discos and all of the relevant authorities need to educate Nigerians.
They need to come clean. Come
clean, educate Nigerians. Tell us, give us accounts of what is happening. Because this seems to be like a cliche. Now we keep talking about the power industry, and now look at what has been happening. Yesterday, the former Minister of Power, and then you keep thinking, this problem didn't start today. It probably started before he became the Minister of Power, and it just keeps going on and on. We just need to see a change in this country.
All right, this is the part where we introduce our guest, who is already seated, to give us his own perspective of what he thinks of some of the stories that made the front pages of the newspaper. Mario Nasrullah, Editor-in-Chief, Deadline Newspaper. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming. He couldn't make it last week.
No, he bailed on us. That was the announcement we made to the leaders. He bailed.
He was
you are softening the language now that is in the studio. But they told us he bailed on us last week. So wherever he was, or rather, he went to, we have paid the ransom, and he's back in the studio. Thank you for coming.
The message has been decoded properly.
Yes. Whatever it was, the price we needed to pay, we have, and he's back in the studio.
It's good to have you join us, Madam Nasir.
Yeah, good to be here.
And looking at the front page of Daily Trust newspaper, you probably be wondering what is going on and who gives us answers to this kind of situations. What can you make of bodies of 11 people that were arrested by soldiers found in Kaduna forest, and army is saying that we do not kill people? What can we make of this?
Well, I don't think it's good for the image of, the military, because some of the parents that spoke to Daily Trust actually said their, words were taken by the military, only for them to recover their corpses some days after. So I also saw the military trying to say that, no, we don't do that unless if maybe in the course of exchange of fire or something like that, but we don't kill people after arrest. So I think it's now for an independent authority, probably the federal government. I'm also happy that the state government has already made it clear that they will follow up on the matter. So I think they should work hand in hand with the federal government so that we will have a neutral body that will get to the bottom of this. Because I remember this is not the first time that something like this will be happening. I remember in 2004 or so, Daily Trust did a story, you know, some commercial motorcyclists were arrested in Kaduna, and after some days, you know, they were buried I think at the Bashama Road cemetery. And when the people went there, they were able to identify some of the corpses. And, you know, there were people that were arrested while staging a protest or something like that, only for them to be killed, you know, extrajudicially and then buried, you know, under the cover of the night. But, you know, like people will say, whatever you do, you know, the truth will get to come out one day. And I hope the military will cooperate with whoever is going to be the one investigating this, so that we're not saying simply because the parents are making the allegations that they are saying the truth. You know, in Nigeria, we have this tendency, you know, to side with our own, whether they have one or two cases to answer. You know, we always want to side with our own. That's why I said we need to have an independent, you know, a neutral body that will investigate this and, you know, tell Nigerians whatever happened.
It's unfortunate. You made reference to one or two cases. You also remember the issue of the Apo killings right here in the Federal Capital Territory. And we hope that the government moves swiftly. The army, I think, should also be interested in unraveling this kind of extrajudicial killings. It's not good for your image, especially where you want to build trust with the community to help you with intelligence to name the incessant killings in that region. But one other issue that seemed to perverse most of the papers this morning is the sacking of the bank MDs in these three banks. It was leaked as usual before the central bank, you know, came up with a statement that was exactly not very detailed about what these interventions were. And then in the dead of the night, they also released names of those who we woke up this morning to get names of those who have been appointed on an interim basis. Now, we do not understand to the extent what this means. Is this a nationalization of the bank? Is this a taking over? Is this just punitive? And because I spoke to one or two board of directors, even though they are not willing to speak openly, that have said they were asked to resign. You know, what this means, we probably will get to know as the day unfolds. But what do you make of this move? There had been a special investigation. He submitted reports to the president. As the tradition is in Nigeria, we probably would have seen a white paper, you know, taking some decisions that will even be administrative to correct the processes that give birth to those things and probably have some implementation. But in this case, he submitted a report in December, and by January, 3 bank MDs are gone. Transactions that were done run into hundreds of millions of naira, probably now in a state of confusion, because both those who invested and those who work in the bank are not exactly sure of what's happening. Let me have your take on all of what has transpired.
Honestly, I think the Apex Bank has lots of explanations to make because, like you said, that statement was very short. It was not detailed. In fact, there was no mention of anything that had to do with the special investigation, you know, that the president ordered. So I don't know how they came about this, even though they mentioned some infringements, you know, that had to do with regulatory infringements and what have you. But honestly, I don't think what they said in that statement is enough. Of course, you don't have to start coming up with policies that will, rather than bring sanity into the system, will end up, you know, creating panic, you know, anxiety, like one of the papers actually said in their headline. Because, you know, whatever infringement, you know, you should have followed the due process. But like I said, what they said in that statement, was very short. It was not detailed for us to understand. Probably in the coming days, just like they did with the announcement of those they appointed on the interim, because that should have been part of the initial statement. But they released the statement like 5-6 hours after, when we have gone to sleep. They all
like they were not sure of the names until the dead of the night.
So when I saw the story actually this morning, I said, is it somebody also leaking the story? Because that's actually what happened with the first one. You can see even from the paper, some are still including the Titan, and in the statement of the CBN that was clearly left out. And somehow it was actually the Titan bank, that was all over the place trying to state its own side of the story. I don't think we've had anything from Polaris, we've had anything from Keystone.
No.
Probably they are satisfied, or they don't want to rock the boat. Probably they have one or two things that they believe if they keep quiet, probably the regulator may decide to look the other way around. But honestly, we need more explanation. And like I said, rather than come up with policies that will end up creating panic, honestly, you should have thought it well before releasing it, so that Nigerians will know that what you are trying to do is actually to bring sanity, not to create confusion.
I will let you go until you comment on the African Cup of Nations.
Bless us. Go ahead.
He probably will, but because the next time he's here, the African Cup of Nations has kick-started. And with the recent development, now the Nigerians have options where to watch the African Cup of Nations. What's your thought for Nigeria, getting into the competition, knowing that we haven't seen this cup for more than 10 years?
Well, I hope Nigerians will be able to justify, their presence in this competition. Sometimes you will expect too much from them, only for them to disappoint you in the end. I hope this is not something that we'll see this time around, because this is something that will have taken place actually last year. But because the original host, couldn't get a way around it, we had to look for another, host, and this is why we are holding it in 2024. And you can see some of the clubs in UK are already, not happy. Like what the coach of Liverpool said, he's, wishing that Salah will leave in the first round so that he will get back to the Premier League.
I don't think the Egyptians are getting that, are taking that just.
Of course, they will not.
Just smiling.
I'm not sure what to think of it. I'm a Liverpool fan, so on the one hand, yes. On the other hand,
we're sorry about that, but Mohamed Salah needs to be here.
The Nations Cup.
Yeah, we're looking forward to see the likes of Sadio Mane, Mohamed Salah, our players, all the Super Eagles players,
to make it colorful.
As much as we're suffering some sort of injury, but we hope to do better.
This frenzy yesterday at the newsroom, when we were trying to bring this up, some people didn't understand what was going on, and it's the same thing with my wife. She said, so sometimes when I come back very tired and I need to watch a football match, she says, I don't understand the obsession. 24 people and over 50,000 running after a leather ball. I'm trying to just put it in a hole, but it's as interesting as it gets. It's one thing that unites us as a country, and we wish the Super Eagles all of the best and injury-free competition. We have lost so many players already, and we hope that that's all that we have for it. Thank you very much once again. For finding time to, and I hope you don't bail on us next week.
No, I will not.
Thank
you for having me.
I'll take your word for it.